I'm Alayor Kengalu. I'm a physicist. In Neurotherapeutix, we work on a number of psychiatric disorders. We treat them with fMRI-guided TMS. And it's very important to understand why different psychiatric disorders, and here primarily we're going to be talking about depression, why do they lend themselves so beautifully to these two combination of these two technologies, fMRI and TMS. Depression is believed to be a disorder of networks, and networks are a group of brain regions that have to work together very closely in order to allow us to do things, to understand language, to generate language, to walk, to talk, to process reality of the outside world that can make us sad or happy or hopeless or hopeful, for that matter. These are not things that happen, even though in the colloquial language we have a word for these things, but really all of these things are a state of mind. Our human mind is capable, a human brain, and the mind is really the emergent property of the brain, is capable of giving us these feelings, making us understand things, making us be able to enjoy music, enjoy a beautiful scenery, be able to comprehend language, and be able to relate to other human beings. All of these are really skills, and these skills are acquired through the same way that playing tennis is a skill. Being able to be happy is also a skill that if you don't acquire it properly, and if our brain regions involved in allowing us to experience happiness, if they don't work, then we are going to fail to be able to be happy in occasions where they call for happiness, or we might forever lose the ability of ever experiencing happiness and get stuck in the prolonged state of sadness, which is called depression. So these are really the magic of networks. Networks, really, the story of human life is the story of networks. We have many of these networks. These networks interact with each other, and the interaction of these networks enable us to be a human being. And by that, I mean all the experience of human being, have the abilities, physical abilities of human being, play tennis, play piano, be a good carpenter, be a mathematician, be happy, be a father, be a good citizen. All of these things are really state of mind. These abilities are not really confined in our legs or toes or kidneys or heart. They're really the abilities of the brain. And that's why being able to understand this network, and more importantly, being able to visualize the networks, being able to take a picture of these networks, that fMRI allowed us to do that. Before, maybe 20 years ago, we couldn't take a picture of the mind. Now, once we have a picture of the mind, then we can realize, we can explore what goes wrong in one mind, that this person is too anxious or too depressed, can't experience happiness, cannot get involved in physical activity, in human activity that makes him hopeful for the future.
I'm Marta Moreno. I'm a clinical neuroscientist. We could say the following: depression has been treated with standard TMS, which is not using functional MRI or any type of imaging to guide the procedure. So it's using external landmarks of patients' heads that are not considering the size of the head, let alone the neuroanatomy or the functional connectivity. So it's very inaccurate, and that explains the heterogeneity of TMS in depression using the standard approach. Nevertheless, the standard approach was the first step into a new modality of treatment in neuropsychiatry that allow us non-pharmacologically to address and change the chemicals in the brain. So with the functional MRI, we can now detect, as Dr. Kengalu was saying, brain networks. We can pinpoint areas of the brain that are malfunctioning, so that different patients that are expressing the same symptoms, like depression could be a symptom in a stroke patient, could be a symptom in a traumatic brain injury. It's a symptom in the frontotemporal dementia, the first presentation. It's a symptom of the depressive unipolar depression. It's a symptom in bipolar disorders. So all of these conditions share the symptom of depression. Should we treat all of them the same way? The answer is absolutely not. We should look inside the brain, we should study the brain connectivity, and we should pinpoint which areas are best for that specific patient that is struggling with that specific symptom. And that is why it's so important to bring imaging tools in order to guide the procedure so that you can personalize. So once and forever, we can now bring a technology that allows us to personalize medicine in psychiatry. Because till now, psychiatry and psychiatrists were diagnosing patients without seeing inside the brain. And we have, for instance, dramatic cases in the clinic of patients being diagnosed with depression, treated with the standard TMS, and for instance, in a very dramatic case, came to us, we did the imaging, and we found that the whole left hemisphere of the brain was never developed because this patient had a stroke in utero that prevented the brain to develop. So what's happening here is the patient is diagnosed with depression, which is not a patient like usual patient with depression, and also was treated on the left hemisphere following the standard approach when there's no left hemisphere. So this is a very dramatic example that tells us how important it is to see inside the brain, to look inside the brain, to really know what's going on first before having any diagnosis and starting any type of treatment. And brain networks is allowing us to do that approach. The approach we have in the clinic and the technology that we have patented involves the reconstruction of brain networks. So our approach goes for circuit-based targeting. So we are going to be treating several regions of the brain at once in a single session, moving from one target to another, a group of areas that are interconnected, because that has proven to have a much be more efficacious and longer lasting effects.